This is part 2 of Harriet Jacobs' Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. I was pointing you to a couple of passages where she attempts to assert control over her own life through the words of the book itself. She directly addresses her reader, for example, at the bottom of page 926. Asking, reader, did you ever hate? I hope not. I never did but once, and I trust I never shall again. She wants to connect with her reader. She wants them to empathize. She wants them to understand the situation that she was experiencing. Now, her readers for this time period probably were most likely white women who obviously were literate and able to read. And they would have been ones too who greatly valued the model of what a woman should be during the time period. A woman should be focused on the domestic world of the home. The woman should be one who values motherhood, who is a mother, who emphasizes family, who is chaste, who is pious. And Jacobs points out, though, that her situation in slavery makes her very different from women who might be reading her book. And she points this out over on page 929 in particular. She says in the second full paragraph, "But, O ye happy women whose purity has been sheltered from childhood, who have been free to choose the objects of your affection, whose homes are protected by law, do not judge the poor, desolate slave girl too severely. If slavery had been abolished, I also could have married the man of my choice. I could have had a home shielded by the laws." And she says a little bit later, "I wanted to keep myself pure." But she was not able to do so because of the institution of slavery. She wants to cultivate in them feelings of wanting to get something changed, wanting to, that is, to end slavery, whether that be influencing politics through their husbands or backing the war effort. But she wants to tap into those emotions that they would have connected to the importance of family, choice in marriage, and to remaining pure outside of marriage. She points as well to over on 930 about the choice that she made to become involved with a man who was not her husband. She felt as if she could at least have some control over herself, her personhood, if she was able to choose the man who was the father of her children. And so that's why she made the decision to be involved with Mr. Sands. She fights back too through the efforts of her family and her friends who pull together to help her to escape to the north. And I will say too, it is important to recognize that she was receiving the brunt of Dr. Flint's wrath. He was physically and sexually abusing her. And so the family saw it as important to focus on making sure that she escaped to the north. And in doing so, when she reaches the north, in the last chapter that is entitled Free at Last, she wants to be able to gain freedom on her own terms, by her own means, but ultimately she must depend upon her friend Mrs. Bruce, who ultimately is able to help her by paying for her freedom. In this last section too, there is imagery that's very interesting too. Before Mrs. Bruce gives the money to pay the bill of sale, Harriet Jacobs, or Linda Brent tells us too, she has to stay closely veiled so no one will see her if she is detected, because of the fugitive slave law of the time period. She could be captured and sent back to the South at this point, but she says she has to keep a veil over her face. Ultimately, though, when she does have her freedom, over on the top of page 941, she tells us that she can remove the veil, she can look at people as they passed, she can show her face, she can show her true identity. As the story closes, she tells us that her story does not end in the usual way, though. The usual way for a story about a woman would have been oftentimes end with marriage. Here, she is still attempting to work for her full freedoms. She wants to be able to raise her family. She says, I do not sit with my children in a home of my own yet. I still long for a hearthstone of my own, however humble. And I think leaving us with, too, at this point, she's still struggling to be able to raise her family together, would have increased the impact that this story would have had on her readers. This ends the second video. Thanks for listening, and please ask questions if you have them.